Greetings, Kerbonauts. This is Kerbal Space Program. I'm Bob Fitch, and this is episode number 27 of the Gateway Project, in which we are launching the JEM-EF. That is the Japanese experiment module, the exposed facility that goes outside the pressurized module that we already have out there. In our world, that exposed facility went up on a space shuttle, the Endeavour STS-27, in July of 2009. Although in my dimension, it is going up on a Kerbal launch system number 6, the biggest one I've got. Although it isn't really that I needed to have something so big in terms of the rocket, it's just the fairing. I needed to have a nice big 3.75 expanded fairing because this exposed facility is quite big. And for that, I just wanted to put it on an appropriate rocket rather than doing something silly like having a 3.75 up on top of a 2.5 meter rocket. And here we are. We have decoupled our lower stage and our interstage that protects the engine and the fairing, and now we are pushing our apoapsis up. Let's see if we can hit the station. And once again, we are intercepting the station directly from the surface. I love it. There's a really good view right there of it now as I have set up a maneuver node in order to get myself a little bit more lined up, and pretty soon we'll be going into a third burn as we match the velocity with the station at the exact same time that we circularize as well. So a really good look of that exposed facility right there. The KSS is coming up behind us now. There's a whole bunch of experiments on that thing. Technically, what really is supposed to happen is the docking station, the pallet for it, is supposed to go on first, and then the space shuttle transferred all of those experiments one by one over and docked them up to special receptacles on the outside, and it did that by transferring each of those experiment boxes there one by one from one arm to another robotic arm. You know, we have that RMS that's out there on the side of that pressurized module, that robotic arm, and then we have the other robotic arm, and it would take one out of the shuttle bay, and it would move it over to the other arm, and then it'll hook it up. But the last thing I need up here is a dozen more experiment boxes with a dozen docking nodes on those, hooking up to a dozen docking nodes on the station itself. So instead, I have launched it up as one big chunk, and we're just going to dock this onto the station right where it belongs, exactly like you see it, and then it'll be done. So it won't be going through all that effort of hooking up each of the individual modules. They're already all on there. There's a few extra parts that I'll be pulling off once it's docked by going out and EVAing them off of there. Those extra parts are on there because I still need to be able to dock it, right? So I have a couple canisters of monopropellant on it, as well as some RCS engines. And with those, it'll be able to move itself over into position. We have a little Kerbal attachment system box on the underside that will put all of our little jets inside that so that we can take those and deorbit those at some point, and then it'll be all complete there. So we're coming into the station now, and I've got myself lined up. You can see that Navy fish docking alignment. All of the lines are all positioned relative to each other, so it's just a straight, smooth ride right into that little docking node that was already on that module, and I have the little one on the side of the exposed facility. So any second now, and there it is. We are in position, and Bob can go out there and he can take a quick look at that beautiful Soyuz replica first, and then head over to the exposed facility where he can pull off all of those little bits that I put it into place with, stick them in that box, and put them somewhere that they can get rid of them. Now, a little bit goes wrong with this, so right there you're seeing a clue of where my issues are. It can be a little hard sometimes to keep these things all stacked up and going in the right place. I probably shouldn't get overzealous and grab so many parts at one time, but instead what I do is I stack them all up on each other, and then I go over to that box and I try to put them in the box. But you can only put away one at a time, and that means the others start to float away. And then on top of that, I don't actually have enough room in there for the monopropellant tanks and the little 7-way jets that you can see on his back there real quick. So I'm going to put the jets in the box, and I'm going to just take the monopropellant tanks and go stick them on the back of something that I can deorbit. So once we have everything in there, we grab it all, and then I'll just stack it all together again. Well, then I run into the extra problem where sometimes when you grab some of these things and stick them on, they begin to clip with other stuff, and that can cause them to, the physics system believes that they should be ejected out when two things collide. And there, that one just got away. I guess I spun too fast. So I'm going to have to go and collect that one, but I'm not quite sure where it went. So I tab over to it to see how, from its point of view, how far away it has gone. And it was going really fast, but I finally caught up to it, and I grab it and I bring it back to the station. In a way, I'm actually really happy that this happened, because look, as I come back down again, soaring in down under the station, it's actually a really cool view. Look at that. That is really cool. So I come down there and I take that monopropellant tank and I put it inside the bottom of the Soyuz here, because I know that that's eventually going to go in deorbit, so we'll get rid of it when that leaves. So my EVA here is almost done, but thinking about the fact that I'm out here on an EVA reminds me that STS-127 Endeavour's crew contained Christopher Cassidy, who has the distinguishing mark in the history books as having been the 500th person to go into outer space. That's pretty cool. And before we're completely done here, I get to play with my toy a little as I point the radiators away from the sun.
Doing the conservation at saying about it, we must our major off the clock, the color, that is the guild burger. A lot of color green, this is the name of it now, you'll keep it on the symbol of the gallery downtown, and I am out here now. It's been a really much as he brought their boat, really much. I am out as another now. You'll leave the laundry on now, I'll go really much. Give it to me, I've made it. You're going to get me, I've made it. Our major off the clock, the color, let's go in the conservation at saying about it, we must. Our major off the clock, the color, let's go in the conservation at saying about it, we must. That is the guild burger. Our major off the clock, the color, let's go in the conservation at saying about it, we must. So it's the time, Mary. You're pretty good, girl. You're pretty good, girl, man. Leave, and I ought to be cool out, man. Yeah, I'll leave the buzzers so it's there. Keep the whole thought. You're sure why this thing ain't out. Now, straight up. Don't get yourself in. All give me yours now. No, agree to say.
49、48、47、46、45、44、43、42、41、40、39、38、37、36、35、34、33。
ウォーターカーテン散水開始。
Galactic water curtain starts.
24 seconds. Guidance control system is armed. T-minus 10, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Main engine stop.
Liftoff on the maiden flight of the HTV rocket and a new cargo ship headed for the International Space Station.
HTV 有随飛翔機を搭載した HTV ロケット飛行機は平成21年午前
mission control was shifted from the blockhouse to the range control center.
ロケットはロール制御の後ピッチ制御を行い初期飛行方位角を 108.5 度とし徐々に南東方向の太平洋上へ飛行しています。
After the roll axis control, the H2 shifted to the pitch axis control. It's flying over the Pacific Ocean to the southeast with its initial flight angle of 108.5 degrees.
種子島内之浦の
All systems reported to be in good shape so far in the first minutes of the flight of the H-2B rocket.
And Uchinora stations are tracking the launch vehicle very well. 90.
And there it is. With the fairing now released, you can see the HTV-1, which of course, since you just heard the actual launch footage, you know that's what just went up. It launched from Tanegashima Space Center in September 2010, carrying 4.5 tons on its first flight, which is not its maximum load. However, they needed to put some extra fuel and extra batteries on there to conduct the testing since this was its first flight. They needed to verify the avionics and the propulsion. It has more than 800,000 parts on it. So as you can imagine, there's a lot to test on there. 800,000 parts. How do they have a computer powerful enough in order to actually render that? I'd have all kinds of lag with that many parts. Speaking of parts, before we actually finish docking this up to the station, I'm going to temporarily interrupt this launch to take you down to the vehicle assembly building, and down there we're going to take a look at what goes inside my replica HTV as well as the H2 rocket. We'll start with the bottom again here. So if you take a look here, you can see that I put on the full thrust and full solid fuel for these side boosters. However, the engines, I did limit them down to only 54 of their normal thrust, 54%. There's two of those in there using the same trick that I've used before. Let's pull these off since there's not really much else going on in there. The same trick I've used before where there's this little end cap that I've put down in there, and the actual engines themselves have been placed up on the end of some struts. So you can see these struts right here. What I did was, let's take those out of the way. I took one of these and I put it on radially. It'll make more sense actually if I go in and grab one like this. This isn't the same one I used, but you'll get the idea. So you put it like this and you surface mount it, but then you just flip it over so that it's upside down. And if you don't have any on there and you want to do that, then you can hit symmetry and it'll give you a couple little nodes. Alternatively, you can use some sort of surface mounted thing like I've done in the other video with the Soyuz, where you can take this and you can put that on in there. In this particular case, I didn't really care if I had those because it was going to get covered up by this, so I just put those little struts on there instead, and it allowed me 2 docking points in order to get these engines on, and then I put this on. So we'll move our way up the rocket. It's just a regular KW fuel tank and another fuel tank there. This is a procedural fairing that covers up the actual top stage of the rocket. I have the little door open in here so that we can see inside. So actually I'll open up the other one as well. So I put some batteries in there, you can see those, and I had some little gyroscopes, but then when I launched it, it didn't really want to fly as straight as I was hoping, the first test flight. So I ended up coming in here and sticking some extra gyroscopes in there, and that held it going in the right direction pretty well. We got our monopropellant and our antenna in here for deorbiting, other antenna, CPUs. I put 2 CPUs in there just to make it balance out because I didn't want to try and make it fit directly in the middle. I don't think there's that much else on here. You can see that it had a few other things like struts and stuff and some RCS jets, KW rocketry motor down there on the bottom, and of course my 6S compartments. The actual HTV is inside the fairing here. So there it is. This has a lower compartment that contains the batteries and all of that goes in here. I have the monopropellant RCS jets in the same positions, relatively speaking, as the real thing, and for the most part, close to the same number of them as well. So down here you can see that I have those 4 engines and this end cap that had some gyroscopes using some surface mounting on the inside there, as well as a fuel tank for liquid fuel and oxidizer. My monopropellant tanks, the batteries are stuck up in there. Some more mono, remote tech. And above the 6S compartment, we have the actual CPU that I used as my root. We brought up some extra life support, and I had that up in the pressurized area that normally when it docks up here, the people would be able to go down into this area through there and get access to all the stuff that would be inside here. And then they have an exposed area as well. Now, technically, this was supposed to be a pallet of gear, particularly the science experiments that are supposed to go outside in that exposed facility. What I did was I used it, though, to sort of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and I brought up, since all the experiments were already attached to the exposed facility, I used this to bring up some orbital replacement units that were supposed to launch on a Discovery space shuttle flight that I'm pretty much just skipping over otherwise. Speaking of the exposed facility, this is the rocket that launched that up. So you saw that one. It was a KLS number 6. It is the usual lower stage, upper stage, 3.75 meter fairing there. And then we had a little slightly specialized, I redid the Minotaur. It now has 3 solar panels, because if you only have 2, sometimes you can get them oriented in such a way that the sun actually can't hit either of them. That didn't happen to me on this launch, but it is something I've been thinking about doing, is putting a 3rd one on there to make sure that no matter what angle, there's always a way to get some sun. So I did that, and I updated my sub-assembly. Inside, we still have just the regular mono and remote tech and the CPU. So we'll pull that off, and you can see that was attached to a docking node there where I had those extra parts. You saw those get taken off. Those were just on there to help me put it into place, as I said. And then these as well, all that stuff can come off. And that leaves us with the exposed facility. Now all of these on the side, 1, 2, 3 over here, 4 over there. There's that one with the antenna on it, the dish, and 4 more up here. All of those are actually supposed to be experiments that get docked to it over the course of time and can be swapped out. And like I said, I put those all on at the very beginning. Previously, I had said there were 6 components of that whole Japanese section, and this represents 2 of those last ones. This dish is part of the inter-orbit communication system, which is part number 6, and then this was the EF. And that brings us back now up into orbit with the HTV-1 on its way over to the KSS, its maiden voyage. At the conclusion of this particular docking, we will have gotten up to mission 88 of the 143 that I'm tracking, as well as having concluded 76% of the EVAs that I have on my list. So inside there, even though that's not what I'm bringing up, there would have been some experiments, as I was saying. Like a couple of the big ones were the SMILES experiment. That's an acronym that represents a bunch of fancy science-y sounding letters that ultimately comes down to meaning that they were using it to analyze the atmosphere around Earth. Also, there was a second experiment that was analyzing the atmospheric conditions, but just in a different way. That was called the RAIDS experiment, R-A-I-D-S, and again, a bunch of fancy sciencey sounding terms if you actually knew what all those letters stood for. I won't bore you with that though. If you're really super interested, you can always just Google RAIDS. It was the HREP, H-R-E-P, partnered experiment that was partnered up with the HICO experiment, the H-I-C-O, which was imaging the coastlines all around Earth. And so between the RAIDS and the HICO experiment, that HREP is able to give us a much greater understanding of conditions around our own planet. And now we are easing our way up with that HTV. It's going to dock on the nadir side there of the Harmony module. Meanwhile, the stage that lifted it up here in the bottom right is deorbiting. It's on its way down for destruction. And after the HTV launch docks up here, Bob will slide his way down through the internal compartments and grab some of the gear inside, and then go out and get the actual ORUs, which, like I said, should have been experiments, but I'm going to have them be replacement units. There should have been some things on there like an ammonia pump and maybe some batteries and things like that that they can put out onto that ESP3, as well as I think I'm still due one on the ESP2. So we're going to grab a few of those Kerbal attachment boxes and use those to represent those ORUs, just like I've been doing all along. Stick those out there, and so this time without any issues like bumping into radiators that make this whole station shimmy, or boxes that go flying crazily away off into space. This actually went fairly smoothly. And then I just go take a look inside, and next you're gonna see a really cool sight. Watch as he comes out right there. I don't know what it was, but that just seemed really cool to me, like he was stepping out of a doorway into a big void. Anyway, he's all done. And that lets us go check in on the Minmus Research Base, where Bill is out there inspecting the life support to make sure everything is in working order, and going over to check on the battery module and the solar panels and see if everything is all functioning and in 100% tip-top working order shape. This hadn't actually been opened previously, so we're going to open that up and take a look inside there. But it looks like everything is in good working order here as well. So we can move on and start inspecting the next component of our Minmus Research Base. So far, everything's been pretty quiet over at the Anomaly. So we're just kind of hanging out here now, waiting for our next orders. It looks like these dishes are in good working order, and those solar panels are still bringing in the sun, so everything is good here as well. Now we need to move down the line and take a look at our life support that we brought up additionally. Oh wait, oh no! Meanwhile, back at the station, they have no idea yet that something is going terribly wrong at the Minmus station, and they're just going about their normal business, deorbiting the HTV-1 after 52 days on station, and off it will go to be destroyed by deadly re-entry. Or at least that's what's supposed to happen, but I think I have figured out what happens sometimes when I do an Alt F12 and a reload of all of my parts after I've welded something and brought everything back online. Sometimes the DLLs don't load correctly. A Kerbal attachment system is definitely one that pretty much every single time doesn't load correctly. I think deadly re-entry doesn't load correctly either, and that means it doesn't actually get the re-entry effects like I had in the one past video, and instead it just goes and hits the water. All of my solid metal plates must be made of styrofoam or something. That's an interesting effect on metal. Well, anyway, that's it for this time. We will find out what's going on at the Minmus base in the next episode. But until then, I will see you later, Kerbonauts.